They sent a god killer to Earth. She sent it back, gift trapped in fire. The stars had long gone silent over Earth. What was once the crown jewel of human civilization had become a ghost, whispered about only in exile colonies and forgotten orbital bunkers. No signals, no trade, no survivors. For most of the galaxy, Earth was already marked with the Black Seal, a planet annihilated not just by time, but by decree. That decree had come from the Vulcan Dominion, the ruling force across 8,000 systems, cold, ancient, efficient. They hadn't even bothered to invade Earth. They had simply sent a Golgoth-class singularity bomb, cloaked and humming through the void, a weapon designed not to explode, but to erase time, memory, all physical evidence, gone, except something had gone wrong. 40-7 years later, a ship appeared in orbit above the Galactic Council seat on Virtual Prime, a ship built from Earth alloys, scarred by radiation, and shaped like a coffin dragged from hell. It broadcast no signal, no ID, no allegiance. And it drifted silently until docking itself without permission. In the heart of the Council Citadel. Inside, waiting behind the sealed ramp, was a human. Her name was Major Valina Cade, but across what was left of Earth's hidden colonies and the long-range rebel beacons, she was called by another name, Baba Yaga. She hadn't spoken aloud in 3 years. The void between stars had a way of swallowing words and sanity, but she had made herself a promise. If she survived the journey, if the ship held, if her blood didn't boil from the cancer lining her bones, she would walk onto the council floor and deliver the Empire's bomb back to its makers. She watched from her cracked viewport as dozens of council response craft circled the ship. The comms screeched with warnings in 12 languages, weapons powered up, drones scanned, shields pressed like invisible waves of heat against her hull. Valina didn't flinch. She reached into the metal crate beside her, its surface scorched, its symbols half erased by the quantum firestorm that should have killed her and every other breathing thing on Earth. Inside was the bomb, still humming, still intact, except for one difference. Its fail-safe core had been swapped. The bomb was no longer a void maker. Now, it was a beacon, a transmission device wired directly to the truth. Every last recording, every scream, every shattered city and scorched valley on Earth during the last hour before impact. 1,000 terabytes of grief, survival, and fury encoded into raw memory and pain. And now it was aimed at the Council. She didn't come to destroy them. She came to show them what they did and to make them feel it. 20 years earlier, Valina had been a combat engineer stationed at Luna Base when the skies over Earth went black. She wasn't on Earth when the bomb struck. She saw it from the far side of the moon, a silent wave of light that bent around the planet like a mocking halo. The sensors went blank. The air stopped moving. Even time seemed to stall for a second. Then Earth was gone, not exploded, not shattered, just erased. For years, the survivors debated if the planet had fallen into a singularity pocket. Some thought it was temporal compression. Others believed Earth had been folded into another dimension. But Valina never accepted the silence. She took a stolen recon ship, programmed a suicide course for Sol, and vanished into the irradiated remains of space-time, chasing a world that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. And she found it, buried beneath quantum shrapnel, encased in collapsing space, but alive, burned, scarred, fragmented, but alive. Small communities had survived in bunkers. Children were born in the ruins. Old soldiers held the line, waiting for a help signal that never came. Earth hadn't been destroyed. It had been cut off from reality and left to die. And it had refused. Valina became something else in those years. Not just a soldier, not just a survivor. She became a myth, a woman who moved like a ghost, rebuilt dead machines with her hands, and carried the last will of Earth in her blood, Baba Yaga. And now, she had returned. As her coffin ship docked fully into the Citadel's breach zone, sirens wailed, forces assembled. Council guards in gold-plated armor waited for her to emerge, rifles charged, nervous fingers on triggers. Valina rose from her seat, bones cracking, lungs wheezing through recycled breath. She fastened her coat, still bearing the Lunar Corps insignia, and lifted the bomb crate in her arms. One final step, one final reckoning. She keyed the hatch. The door began to open, and for the first time in nearly 50 years, a human stepped onto council ground carrying the truth of Earth in their hands. The guards raised weapons. She raised her voice. I have returned what you sent, and Earth is not done speaking. Asterisk. Do you understand what you've brought here? The Archon whispered. Valina smiled with blood on her teeth. Not yet. The council chamber, carved from obsidian mine on dying stars, had not seen a human in centuries. The last one they'd summoned had knelt. This one did not kneel. Valina stood in the center, the crate humming softly beside her. The bomb that was no longer a bomb. Her presence was impossible. Her ship a violation of every defense protocol the Galactic Dominion had in place. The council's silence was a trembling thing. 12 Archons sat in half-circle thrones above her, each representing the old and powerful races of the galaxy. They were used to fear, used to submission, used to peace forged by threat of annihilation. Now, they stared at the aftermath of their mistake. The Vulcan Archon, flesh like wet obsidian and crowned with gleaming neural tendrils, leaned forward. You carry a relic, a weapon forbidden by treaty. Explain yourself, Earthburn. Valina's voice was gravel, unshaken, low, dangerous. You sent this to erase us. A pause. The Archons exchanged glances, unease blooming like static in the air. That device was dispatched to neutralize a potential breach in interstellar quarantine. Earth was non-compliant, contaminated, dangerous. Valina tapped the crate once. A low hum echoed across the chamber. Lights flickered. We weren't contaminated. We were inconvenient. A murmuring hiss rippled from the Serati delegate, a snake-like being whose kind had once traded with Earth before the Vulcan annexation. You should not be alive. Your planet was absorbed. Valina turned to face the serpent's cold gaze. Then explained the screaming. With a single hand motion, she activated the crate. The chamber went dark. Then, sound ra, fractured, unstoppable sound. A child crying in a collapsing tunnel. A medic broadcasting coordinates for help that never came. An old man reciting names from a ruined memorial wall. A girl screaming for her dog. Moments before the time slice took the valley. The chamber pulsed with Earth's last breath. No filters, no edits, no heroics, just memory, pain, loss, and survival strung together like barbed wire through a grieving throat. The projection faded. Silence fell like judgment. The Kravari Archon, massive, steel-skinned, forearmed, rose from his throne. This is emotional warfare. You bring trauma as argument. Valina didn't flinch. No, I bring proof and a warning. She took a step forward and the guards bristled, but none moved. They didn't know how to. You didn't just kill people. You stole voices. You built an empire out of forgetting. But Earth remembers. The Vulcan's voice was a hiss of machinery and contempt. We ended a threat before it metastasized. Your kind refused unity. You bred defiance like a disease. Valina locked eyes with him. You're damn right we did. On the fringes of council space, a silent observer recorded the proceedings. The Dominion's AI overseers, cold intelligences fused into the council's surveillance grid, tracked Valina's biometric spikes, her vocal patterns, her intent. But something was wrong. The crate's signal wasn't contained. It was broadcasting to every hidden outpost that still remembered Earth. To sleeper ships lost in the void. To rebel cells seeded generations ago. The bomb wasn't a message for the council. It was a rallying cry. Back in the chamber, the atmosphere had thickened. Fear now crept behind polished pride. The Archons whispered in tongues older than stars. And then, it happened. The Vulcan moved to execute her. A silent nod to the guards. A concealed weapon drawn. A thin pulse blade hissed to life, blue and trembling. Valina moved faster. In one brutal twist, she grabbed the closest guard's rifle, slammed the butt into his faceplate, and turned it on the advancing threat. The weapon barked once and melted the pulse blade arm to the bone. The Vulcan Archon screamed, the kind of scream that shook empires. But Valina didn't fire again. She didn't need to. She looked at the council and said nothing. Just let the sound of pain echo. That night, across a dozen worlds, encrypted signals flared to life. Hidden frequencies long forgotten by the Dominion sparked back on. Moon bases buried under eyes cracked open. Stations thought derelict powered up. They all carried the same message. Earth lives. Valina was dragged from the chamber, bloodied. Her arms bound, the crate sealed. But they hadn't silenced her. They hadn't killed her. They had only confirmed everything she claimed. And deep in the council's data core, something ancient stirred. A protocol buried since the fall of the first resistance. When the humans first rose up to centuries ago. It pulsed now with a single flag. Baba Yaga, status, Threat level Omega. Recommended action, nullify, immediately, but it was already delayed, because Valina wasn't alone, and Earth had never stopped building monsters of its own. They thought she was the last, she was the first. They locked her in a cell 6 miles beneath the surface of Virtual Prime, a cell built for unkillable things. No windows, no air movement, not even the sound of guards outside. But Valina. Kate didn't panic. She counted the seconds between heartbeat spikes in the pressure sensors. She felt the faint shifts in gravity every 3 to 7 minutes, the orbital stabilizers adjusting above. And she listened. Even silence had a texture. She wasn't waiting to escape. She was waiting for the signal. Far above, inside the council's quarantine vault, technicians gathered around the bomb crate, now designated Artifact 047E. Their fingers trembled. None had ever handled a Vulcan singularity device before, much less one that returned. They thought it was disabled, but when they opened the outer shell, they found something impossible. The core wasn't just transmitting data. It was receiving. One tech, young, barely older than Valina had been when Earth vanished, leaned in, confused. A flicker passed across the surface of the sphere. His veins lit up. His scream was cut short. His body fell, all across the sealed chamber. The crate bloomed with a ripple of light. Not deadly, but awakening. The console screens flickered, then glowed. She lives. We remember. We built through the dark. The first human war echo arrived 47 minutes later. It wasn't a fleet. It was a single craft. A black spike of composite alloy and bone shield plating, moving without drive signatures. It slipped past planetary defenses like smoke. They called it Aegis I. The Council had a different name buried in old threat matrices. Gravewing-class Terran Corsair. A ship class Earth never should have had time to build. Inside sat 3 survivors. From the old Earth war fronts. One was blind. One burned from neck to thigh. And one had never spoken since the fall of Sao Paulo Arcology. All of them bore the mark, a silver sliver under the left wrist. The sign of the Ash Rebellion. Confirmed location of Baba Yaga. The captain whispered into a dead channel. She's caged, replied a voice. Not radio, not satellite, but from the bomb itself. In her cell, Valina stood. The air pressure changed, only slightly. No sound. But she felt it. Her people had come. She pulled a sliver of alloy from beneath her tongue, thin as a hair, sharp as memory. She slipped it into the wall panel. Seen. Lights flickered. The locks disengaged. Doors opened without alarms. Every Dominion sensor should have triggered. But someone was rewriting the rules. Aegis I crashed into the Citadel's east wing like a spear of vengeance. Security systems faltered. Mechs deployed, sleek, towering, and built to vaporize armor. The blind rebel walked into the fire first. He carried no weapon. The mech scanned him. No threat profile, until he screamed. And the sonic signature, tuned to Earth's lost military frequency, made the machines forget what they were. They turned on each other in spasms of code seizure and memory bleed. Sparks rained across the chamber. Valina emerged from the sublevels like a shadow walking through time. She didn't need to run. Every step had been earned. Every foot of ground she took was one they had stolen. The burned soldier handed her a rifle, not standard issue, built by hand, each part engraved with names of cities long lost. Earth needs her voice again. Valina nodded once. Then, let's make them listen. At the council apex, Arshan screamed into war channels. Demanded retaliation. Planetary defense grids armed. Fleets scrambled. But systems across the Dominion began flickering. Power loss. Data corruption. Weapon failure. The crate had done more than deliver a message. It had delivered a virus. Crafted in the tombs of ruined bunkers, fed by radiation storms, evolved in isolation. A virus built to infect the Dominion's core AI, the very nerve that kept the Empire alive. And now it was bleeding into everything. Ships turned on allies. Orbital defense platforms rotated toward the wrong stars. Civilian networks began playing songs no one remembered writing. Earth songs, a lullaby, a war chant. The hum of wind over Montana grass. Valina didn't smile. Not yet. Not until they reached the heart of the Citadel, the seat of Dominion power, where the Vulcan Archon had fled. He stood wrapped in shielding drones, plasma barriers glowing like a god's armor. You will die here, he rasped. Velina lowered her rifle. You're still not listening. And she stepped aside. Behind her, Aegis I's last crewman stepped forward, the mute girl, barely 17, with data ports trailing from her skull and pain carved into every nerve. She had been born beneath the ruins of Chicago, fed on rot, raised in silence, but her mind was a weapon. She raised one trembling hand, and the lights died. Across the Dominion's core worlds, every screen lit up with a single message. This is Earth. You tried to bury us, but we grow in the dark. The Vulcan screamed, lunged, a blade like a sun in his fist. Valina fired once. The shot wasn't just for her. It was for every name on the rifle. For the silence, for the dirt, for Earth. And when the Archon fell, the scream stopped. Earth rose from the ashes. The Dominion, it began to eat itself alive. The Vulcan Archon lay dying in the chamber that had once held the weight of an entire empire. His neural tendrils spasmed against the marble floor, flickering with chaotic data leaks as his life bled into the Citadel's systems. Valina stood over him, silent, unshaken, as the war-born girl beside her pulled the data core from his collapsing armor. He was the architect, said Valina, eyes on the dying thing that once ordered her world's erasure. Now he'll serve as blueprint for its undoing. The girl didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her neural ports glowed as the Archon's memories, battle plans, kill orders, asset logs bled into her spine, and all across the Dominion. Chaos ignited. Fleet Control Nexus, Atrax's armed Commodore Veltorin, loyal to the Dominion for over a century, watched in horror as his battlecruisers turned on one another. Their AI cores began to fracture, looping ghost songs through comms, playing static-laced voices of dead humans. I remember when the sky caught fire. Mommy, where did the birds go? We held the bridge until dawn. Missiles were launching uncommanded. Battleships were diving into the hearts of their own orbital stations. He tried to initiate override. The command screen blinked. Do you understand yet? He screamed. Council response command Archons were in disarray. With the Vulcan dead, a power vacuum opened wide enough to swallow fleets. Accusations flew. The Krivari demanded full military deployment. The Serati called for planetary bombardments of known Earth refugee zones. But something worse happened. The humans began to answer back. Old Terran sleeper colonies came online. Outposts the Dominion thought long dead launched into the stars. With weapons crafted from reverse-engineered Dominion wreckage, Earth hadn't just survived. It had learned. Valina moved fast. She had no intention of holding the Citadel. It wasn't a fortress, it was a symbol. And symbols meant nothing unless set on fire. As alarms wailed and Dominion reinforcements collapsed inward from surrounding systems, she and her strike team fell back to the Aegis 1 crash point. We've got 20 minutes before orbital death. Lances reach this hemisphere, said the burned soldier, dragging crates of salvage into the ship. Plenty of time, Valina muttered, pulling the data stick from her coat. It glowed red. Is that what I think it is? He asked. She nodded. The Dominion Prime kill code, extracted directly from the Vulcan Archon's cortex during his final neural death thrash. It wasn't just a weapon. It was the off switch for the entire empire. But it came with a cost. I have activated. It wouldn't just break Dominion systems. It would slaughter every AI-linked infrastructure, every bonded world, every hybrid system, and millions of innocents tied into those machines. Valina stared at it. Her fingers didn't tremble. She handed it to the mute girl. You'll know when. The girl nodded. As Aegis 1 broke atmosphere, Dominion cruisers began to fall into formation above Vershal. The sky shimmered with energy signatures, like gods pressing their palms against the clouds. Inside the cockpit, static screamed from every channel. But buried beneath the noise was a signal, a Terran tone, encoded from Luna Base. To decades ago. Valina's eyes widened. Play it. The war-born girl patched it through. It was a voice. Her father's. If you're hearing this, Valina, I guess you made it further than I did. I knew you would. I just didn't know how. Far. They think erasing a world ends a people. They've never met a human. Do what they never expect. Survive. And make them regret mercy. Her breath caught. The crew gave her space. She closed her eyes. Remember the ash, the taste of old air. The way silence clung to her for years like a second skin. Then she opened her eyes and said one word. Plot jump trajectory. But the Dominion wasn't waiting. As Aegis 1 leapt into slip space, Dominion forces executed Operation Starcatterize, a scorched sector initiative built for one purpose: to contain a resurrection. Entire sectors were sealed, wormholes collapsed, trade lanes atomized. Thousands of French colonies were sacrificed to form a wall of fire around Terran space. It was the beginning of the Great Burn, and the Dominion thought it would end the rebellion before it began. But they miscalculated, because Earth was no longer a place. It was an idea, and that idea had already spread. On distant moons and silent ships buried in asteroid belts, humans stirred. They saw the message Valina had smuggled through the bomb. They heard her words, replayed over broken comms. They read the stars and knew she had come back, aboard Aegis 1. Valina studied the Dominion maps. Entire systems gone dark. Old Earth colonies awakening. Resistance signatures blooming like wildfires. She traced her finger across one planet name, Caltra 7, once a mining world abandoned after the purge, now pulsing with activity. It started. The burned soldier said, "No." Valina replied, "That was just the spark." She looked at the mute girl. Time to light the fire. In the black between stars, the Dominion Core AI calculated projected casualties. Resistance activity grew exponentially. Probability of Terran resurgence, 67%. Probability of Dominion collapse within 19 cycles, 41%. It initiated Protocol Enlight, a program built during the ancient wars, a last resort measure, to build something worse than a bomb, worse than extinction. To build a silencer, something not even Earth could resist. They didn't understand what Earth had become until they tried to silence it again. In the oldest Dominion data archives hidden beneath the neutron crust of the Shroud Core, a signal bloomed to life. It had no name, no code signature. It was simply there, a ripple through quantum static, a memory to older exist. Protocol Enlight. It had been designed during the earliest rise of humanity, when the Council first feared what humans might become, a preemptive failsafe. Not a weapon of mass destruction, a weapon of mass forgetting. It didn't kill. It unmade identity. Baba Yaga knew nothing of Enlight as Aegis 1 tore across fractured slipspace toward Caltra 7. But she could feel it. The air itself was changing. Pressure wrong. Stars flickering at the edges of perception. The mute girl stirred in her chair, tremors racking her thin body. "She's seen it before we do," said the burned soldier. Valina knelt beside the girl, gripping her hand. "What is it?" The girl raised her hand to the console. It shimmered. She traced 3 words in the static. "IT's not alive." The Dominion had built Enlight as a data plague of self-evolving anti-consciousness. It crept into the minds of AI, and living creatures alike, not to destroy them, but to dissolve who they were. Strip names from memories, erase purpose, shatter identity. On Vaxxer 3, Resistance fighters turned on each other, unable to remember what side they were on. On Argentum Spire, a poet whispered into the stars until he forgot his language. Even the Dominion itself began to feel the backlash. Enlight did not discriminate. It had no alliance, only hunger. Valina's comms cracked with whispers, fragments of Earth languages stitched with Dominion protocol. "They're broadcasting the plague across void frequency bands," said the burned soldier. "It's piggybacking on every Terran call and response signal. Every resistance flare is infected. We're spreading it ourselves." Valina asked. "Worse, it's adapting to us." How do you fight something that unmakes memory? No one had an answer. The decision came down to a single, unbearable moment. In the Aegis 1's armory, deep in the rear vault, Valina unlocked a case she had vowed never to open. Inside was Project Echo Black. Built in secret beneath the lunar shards of old Earth. Echo Black was a forbidden tool and identity core that could anchor the mind against corruption. It wasn't a shield. It was a prison. It would lock the user's memories in place, permanently frozen. No growth, no change, and if hacked or touched by Enlight, it would self-immolate, taking the host's mind with it. There was only one. She didn't hesitate. Valina placed it at the base of her skull. "You sure?" asked the burned soldier. Already knowing the answer, Birth remembers, she said. "So I will too," as the core activated. A shockwave of pain ripped through Valina's mind. Her memories became steel and ice. Nothing could enter. Nothing could escape. She stood, breath ragged, but her eyes, her purpose were still there. Unshaken. They reached Caltra 7 at dawn. Or what passed for it. The world had gone dark, clouds thick with static storms, buildings pulsing like they were breathing. Resistance teams gone silent. Valina led the descent team down herself. They found one survivor, an old man, kneeling in a crater of glass and memory rot, whispering to the air. "Who am I?" he asked. "Did I used to matter?" He looked up at her. "Did we ever win?" Valina stepped forward and knelt beside him. She took his hand. "You're human. That's enough." And for a moment, clarity returned. He smiled and died. They knew then, Enlight couldn't be fought with weapons. It had to be fought with meaning, with memory. The mute girl, still linked to Dominion frequencies, spoke for the first time. A single word: monolith. It wasn't a place. It was a code chain, a legend buried in Terran myths. Valina remembered. The rumors. A hidden message in the Martian archives, older than the Singularity bomb, older than the Council. A signal embedded in Earth's first space launch. A proof of self, humanity's identity. Compressed and scattered across deep void. If they could retrieve it, amplify it, and broadcast it through the bomb crate, the same one she had delivered to the Council, it might override Enlight, burn it out like poison from a wound. It was a long shot. It was also their only shot. They jumped toward the forgotten belt where Earth's earliest probes had vanished, where no ship lingered, where stars whispered wrong. And there, floating in silence, they found it. Monolith 1, a satellite older than the Dominion itself, still alive, still waiting. Valina docked in silence. Inside was no weapon. Just a message. We were not made to be perfect. We were made to remember. And in remembering, we become impossible to erase. The mute girl placed her hand on the core. The satellite flared to life. A single word echoed across space. I am. Aegis 1 turned back toward Dominion space. They would return the signal to the Citadel. Through the crate. One last time. And this time, it wouldn't carry a threat. It would carry humanity. She carried no army. Just a signal. Just a truth no empire could silence. The monolith's signal was not loud. It didn't scream like a weapon. Didn't pulse with raw energy or shatter satellites. It simply existed. A soft, unwavering frequency in the void. A whisper through the dark that said one thing, over and over again: we are still here, but to a galaxy built on domination, silence, and control. That was the loudest thing of all. Valina stood at the helm of Aegis 1 as the ship streaked toward Dominion core space. Behind her, fragments of a species the Empire thought extinct. The survivors, the scattered, the defiant. The war-born girl was at her side again, her neural ports blazing with data as she bridged Monolith's memory into the ship's transmission relay. The plan was madness. They would fly back into the heart of the Citadel again and inject the Monolith's signal directly into the Dominion's spinal net. Through the crate she had left behind, the same bomb they once sent to erase Earth would now rewrite the galaxy with the memory of it. But Enlight had grown. The Dominion silencer had evolved beyond its creators. No longer confined to transmission lines and AI cores, it now drifted inside minds. Whispered doubts, fractured will, rebel fleets began misfiring. Captains forgot who they were mid-command. Entire sectors collapsed into silence as Enlight unspooled the meaning behind every cause. Even Aegis 1 wasn't immune. As they approached the virtual breach, the burned soldier collapsed. Velina caught him, but he looked past her, eyes wide, confused. I can't remember my name. He rasped. Did I fight with you? Was I someone? Yes, she whispered, pressing his hand to his own chest. You fought. You lived. You mattered. He smiled, just barely. Then, that's enough, and he died with that memory. A final truth, unbroken. Valina laid him to rest in the starboard cryochamber. There would be no time for mourning. Not yet. Back at the Citadel, the crate still sat in its vault. The Council had sealed the room, terrified to destroy it, too proud to admit it had beaten them. Its lights still blinked. Waiting. Listening. They dropped out of slipspace in a shattered corridor of wreckage, old Dominion war hulks, rebel debris, the burned-out husks of ships that never made it. The Aegis 1 tore through the chaos like a revenant. The Council's planetary shields activated almost instantly, but Valina knew. Those shields were designed to block force, not meaning. Begin signal injection, she ordered. The war-born girl nodded. Her voice, still unfamiliar, barely audible. I need 5 minutes. You'll have to hold them. Valina checked the weapons array. They were nearly depleted. 1 autocannon left. 2 torpedoes. No reinforcements. No backup. Just a human ship carrying a memory the Dominion had spent centuries trying to erase, and a legend they had turned into a nightmare. Baba Yaga was coming home. Council warships surged forward, hundreds, shields glinting, their AI cores already beginning to glitch under the edge of the monolith's truth broadcast. But they didn't need precision, just fire. Aegis 1 was a single spark. They would drown it in solar flame. Valina braced as the first wave hit. The shields crackled. Whole plate shrieked. She fired back. not to destroy, but to distract. This was never a battle. It was a delivery, a final message from a world that tried to silence. 2 minutes. The girl cried. The stars turned red. Alarms screamed. The ship's left engine blew out. Valina was thrown sideways, blood on her lips, smoke in her lungs. But she crawled back to the chair. Because Earth hadn't survived on strength. It survived on refusal. Refusal to die. Refusal to forget. Refusal to be erased. 1 minute left. The hull breached. Vacuum roared. Fires bloomed. Dominion ships closed in. The war-born girl slumped forward, unconscious, overclocked beyond safety. The signal faltered. Valina crawled to the interface. Her fingers, blood-slick and shaking, hovered over the final input. The monolith's words flickered in her mind. In remembering, we become impossible to erase. She slammed the final command. The crate in the Citadel's vault lit up like a star going nova. And then, the signal went out, not just to Dominion systems, but to every human soul that still remembered. Every refugee with a scar, every colony that whispered stories by firelight, every hidden child with a mother's lullaby echoing in sleep. The signal pierced, in light like truth through lies. And for a moment, a heartbeat in eternity, the galaxy remembered who humans were. On Dominion worlds, soldiers paused and stared at their hands. On rebel ships, broken captains stood straighter. In archives long buried, Icors flickered and began to weep. And the Vulcan's own bastion, once a monument to control, went dark, not in destruction, but in silence. Reverent. Change. Velina collapsed at the console. Burned, broken. But the last thing she saw was the screen, a single phrase, transmission complete, then nothing. When they opened the vault again, she was already legend. The Citadel didn't fall in flame. It fell in silence. No alarms, no explosions, just the slow, deliberate stillness of systems shutting themselves down, not by damage, but by choice. The vault doors unlocked not with force, but reverence. The guards who stood outside Vulcan, Krivari, Serati, and more had been bred to obey, trained to fear and subordination. But when the crate began to glow, they dropped their weapons, not from terror. From remembrance. They walked away. One whispered, "She came back." Another wept. Earth speaks. In the council chamber, the remaining Archons convened in panic. The stars were turning against them. Trade sectors were silent. Icors were locking them out of their own warships. Fractures had appeared across the core command mesh, lit with one phrase looping endlessly: "We remember who we are." And light, once their masterpiece of erasure, was unraveling like an old lie. The monolith's memory had rewritten the foundation. Not just of data, of belief. And somewhere in that Citadel, inside a chamber where light refused to die, the crate pulsed. Valina lay beside it, body broken, suit burned, hair matted, with blood and sweat. Her fingers still touched the console, one eye swollen shut, breathing shallow. But the signal was still active, not just relayed, amplified. The war-born girl still unconscious beside her, which once. Then her eyes opened, and in them, the stars had changed. The galaxy ignited. Ships that once flew under Dominion banners turned as one, not to flee, but to rise. At the edge of the Orion Gap, Terran sleeper ships burst from cryo. In a bond expanse, exiled colonists pulled ancient cannons from the dust, and in the deep where no light had touched since the fall, the Grey Fleet awoke. Black ships, silent, burned, scarred, painted with names in forgotten Terran dialects. No beacons, no crew list. Just one shared signal: humanity is no longer running. On the bridge of the Dominion dreadnought Ravager crowned, Admiral Tovik, once one of the executioners of Earth, watched as his control systems turned to ash. Crew deserted, subroutines looped with childhood songs from a planet he'd helped erase. He tried to initiate the failsafe total fire protocol, complete system purge. It responded, protocol rejected. Your authority has been forgotten. In the sky over the Citadel, the Grey Fleet arrived. No fanfare. No hails. Just ships impossibly old, retrofitted with earthburn rage, emerging like ghosts that remembered everything. They moved into formation over the council seat of power and waited. Not for orders, for Valina. Deep beneath the vault, she stirred. Pain rippled through her, but she did not cry out. She turned her head slowly to the girl beside her. The war-born child nodded. "They're here," she whispered. Valina forced herself to sit up. Every bone screamed. Her mind buzzed with static and fire, but her voice steel, Patch me into the council channel. The girl linked her in. 12 Archons panicked, sweating. Cornered appeared in hollow space before her. Valina's face was half in shadow. Her voice echoed like prophecy. You sent a bomb to Earth. We sent it back. She paused, then leaned closer. And now you will listen. The broadcast went galaxy-wide. Valina's image, burned and unbroken, filled every screen, echoed in every calm dot from mining camps in the Barrens to high-orbit cities in the Orion Ladder. Every being human, alien, hybrid watched. You erased our world and called it peace. You silenced our stories and called it order. You scattered us to the edge of extinction and expected us to disappear. But we remember. We survived not because of power, but because we are stubborn. We endure. We resist. She held up the memory core, still glowing from the monolith signal. This is what you feared. Not a weapon, a witness. A record that says, we are still here. Behind her, the crate thrummed once gently, like a heartbeat. You want surrender? She shook her head. You get something rarer. She stood, full height, face lit with fire. You get a second chance. The council said nothing. Not because they didn't want to, because they couldn't. They were obsolete in a galaxy that now remembered the cost of forgetting. Above, the Grey Fleet began releasing aid drones to every shattered colony, Dominion or otherwise. Not soldiers. Rebuilders. Earth tech, hand-modified by the outcasts. They carried water, medicine, fusion cores, memory seeds. And music. Old songs, human songs. In the stars, silence finally gave way to something else. Not war. Legacy. Velina collapsed again. Her strength spent. But she smiled, because this wasn't her story anymore. It never had been. It was theirs. Asterisk. The Dominion wrote the end of our story. So we rewrote the stars. Valina Kate's heart stopped for 41 seconds. In that silence, the Citadel's vaulted chamber grew warm with dust and light. Fire still burned in the outer corridors. Debris drifted in lazy arcs through shattered gravity fields. But she didn't see that. She saw Earth. Not the Earth they burned, but the memory of it. Her father's laugh. Snow on the roof of their mountain shelter. The taste of clean water. The smell of wet soil after rain. She woke with tears in her eyes and blood in her mouth. Alive. The war-born girl sat nearby, watching. She had aged a decade in a single day, her body trembling from overclocked data feedback. Her skin faintly luminous with exposure to the monolith's frequency field. She said nothing, just offered Valina a hand. And Valina, broken but undefeated, took it. Above them, the stars had changed. The Dominion was not gone, but it was no longer in control. Dozens of outer systems had already seceded from the council. The Vulcan language, once mandatory in fleet protocols, was replaced with a new common script that used both Terran phonetics and neutral GLYPHS. No one had mandated it. It just spread. They called it signal tongue. Born from the monolith, carried on every rebel channel, rooted in the simple truth. We are more than what they let us remember. A memorial was erected in the shadow of the Citadel ruins. No flags, no names, just a stone slab, scorched and unpolished, inscribed with one line. Here stood silence. We chose not to obey it. Every species sent offerings, even the Kravari, once architects of human subjugation, lit a ritual fire in honor of the one who came back. Baba Yaga, the death name they gave her, the myth they whispered to terrify rebels. They tried to curse her, but Valina turned it into a crown. She refused command. The fleets wanted her at the center of a new government. She declined. I'm not here to rule, she said. I'm here to make sure no one else does like they did. Instead, she founded the Remnant Accord, not a government, but a coalition of witness keepers, memory archivists, and conflict interveners. Their charter was simple: preserve memory, prevent silence, protect stories. The girl named, unclaimed, and forged in darkness was offered a name by Valina. She didn't choose Eva or Mira or Lysa. She chose Echo, because I am what's left, she said. And what returns? An Earth. It remained lost. The original blue marble had long since been turned to black ash, but orbiting the monolith's drift shell, the first new Earth relay was born. Not a planet, a network. Home was no longer soil or sky. It was connection. A million threads of human stories sent, received, archived across the galaxy. Velina, and he uploaded the last message from her father there. It plays every morning. If you're hearing this, you survived. Now make sure they know why we had to. The Dominion still exists, broken, scattered, watching. They haven't attacked again, not because they fear Terran weapons, but because they fear Terran memory. No silencer, no virus. No empire could undo the reckoning that came from the girl with the crate. The girl they tried to forget. The woman who made the galaxy remember. Children speak her name in reverence now. Baba Yaga, the nightmare-turned savior. The last voice of Earth. The first echo of something greater. And in the dust of forgotten empires. Carved on stone walls and blinking on star lanterns in the deep dark void. One line endures. That day, the galaxy learned what it means to be human.